finally moved to Bozeman from the Chicago area about 4 years ago. I was really excited to move to Bozeman because in my mind it was like starting all over again, getting to meet new friends and striving for excellence in school. About a week later after we moved into our new home, my mom was kind of annoyed with us kids just sitting around the house being bums. So she came up to me and said, "Why don't you go around the neighborhood and try to make some friends?" And I thought, well, how are we supposed to do that? She said, "Well, just knock on their doors and ask if they have kids." Okay? So my brother Ken and I ran out the door. We rode our bikes up and down the streets of the neighborhood and knocked on every door. And we gave our little speech. We just moved into the neighborhood and we're, don't have any friends yet, and we were wondering if you guys have kids. And unfortunately, we haven't met any teenagers in the neighborhood yet. About a half an hour later, my brother Ken and I came up to one house, and they seemed to have about a dozen bikes in their driveway. And I was kind of sick and tired of riding our bikes up and down the streets for what seemed forever. And I'm like, "Ken, let's just go home." He said, "No, wait, let's just stop at this last house and then we can go home." I said, "Fine, whatever." So we walked up to the house and rang the doorbell, and the door opened. And we gave the speech again. We just moved into the neighborhood and we don't have any friends yet. We were wondering if you have any kids. And that's how we met the Ozen family. I think they have 7 kids in their family, 7 or 8. And I think it's really cool because they adopted 2 kids from the Philippines. And so we get to know them a lot. And for the rest of that summer, we hung out with the Ozen family. And after we met them, we rode our bikes home as fast as we could to tell our mom, who was kind of shocked that we actually did what she told us to do. And then, skipping to my sophomore year. Sophomore year was probably one of the worst years of high school for me. It started out fairly well because I told myself that I would work hard to get the grades I wanted. Throughout the year, my grades slipped lower and lower and lower, and I became very depressed. Not just because of my poor grades, but because of the events that took place during my middle school years. That's another long story, but I'll give you guys the shorter version. Basically, my 6th grade year, a friend that I went to school with my 1st grade year came back to school with me, and we got acquainted again and got to catch up on things. But throughout that year, she became very mean to me. She started saying things to me that were not very nice, ended up spreading rumors about me throughout the school, and I became so alone. I felt that the rest of my friends didn't care, and I didn't want to go to school anymore after that. It came to a point where my mom was really worried about me because I was just laying in bed all the time. And she finally went to the principal and said, "There's this girl that's been bothering my daughter who's making her really sick, and you need to go do something about it right now." But obviously he didn't really do anything. He just let it go and he said, "They're just kids, she's probably just jealous." And so those are some of those things came back to haunt me in my sophomore year. My relationship with God had vanished. It felt like there was a wall that separated me from Him, and that there was nothing I could do to break down that wall. My depression became so bad, it stayed with me through the end of the 1st semester of my junior year. I didn't really know how to deal with my depression, and because of that, every little situation that would take place that would cause my self-esteem to drop really low, I would go to a very good friend and tell him everything that was going on. And sometimes I became very angry with some of the advice he had given me. And due to that, we would get into arguments and we wouldn't talk to each other for a couple days, sometimes a week. and I became very close to losing that good friend, all because of the way I acted and treated him. On several occasions, I thought about taking my own life. I couldn't really trust my family, and so I started to grow apart from them. I felt alone, unwanted, and useless in the world, so I started finding ways to make myself feel better, and those ways were not very good. I began cutting myself and thought of ways to end my life. But about 2 weeks later, I think it was, I was sick and tired of being depressed all the time and wanted to do something about it. So I went up to Pastor Barry and asked him if he would like to start studies with me. And of course, me and Pastor Barry was like, sure, we'll start next week. And that was probably the best decision I've made in my life so far. We began to study, and at first, we were just reading some scripture during our study time, and that was all I really did. I wouldn't take the time myself to really get to know God or grow in my relationship with Him. But I think it was about a month later I started really thinking and growing that relationship with God. Eventually, my mom had known that I was starting studies, and yet I was still kind of depressed sometimes. And my mom was sick and tired of me just lounging around, doing nothing, just moping. And so she had to do something about it. After school, one day after work, I had finished work in school. I walked home and went into my room and closed the door. About 5 minutes later, my mom came in. She closed the door and sat on the bed, and she's like, I need to talk to you. This is very important. And so she started talking to me, and she had me tell her everything that was going on in my life. And it was really good to get to tell her everything that was going on, because I don't normally do that. So we decided to make an appointment to see the doctor the next day. I had been put on antidepressant medication and thought that everything from that time on would be okay. And it was. Not only because I was on the medication, but because I was growing in my relationship with God. Which led to the beginning of this year, September 3rd, when I was baptized. In everything I've been through, I realized that God was there for me. Even though I made excuses to separate myself from Him, He continued to love me anyway. Colossians chapter 1, verses 21 and 22 said, once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now He has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in His Spirit, without blemish and free from accusation. These verses describe what God had done for me. But Colossians chapter 1 doesn't just tell me what God had done for me. It tells me it's about changing the world. Speaking of Jesus, Paul says in Colossians 1:19 and 20, for God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him, speaking of Jesus, and through Him to reconcile all things, whether things on heaven or whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross. And then in verse 23 it says, this is the gospel that you heard, and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven. I found out that the gospel isn't just for me, it's for everybody. And the gospel isn't just for everybody, it's for everything. God doesn't just change me, He changes everything. In Revelation 21, John saw what this change of everything would look like. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and He will dwell with them. For they will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. Changed people join God in changing everything. And tomorrow, Reese will show you what you can do to make a difference too.